Malaysia had made great progress in education on many fronts, including increased access to preschool education and secondary education, as well as expanded opportunities to pursue post-secondary and tertiary education. Measures taken to address inequities in the system, including special programs for the indigenous population, support programs for the poor students, and focus on narrowing the gap between rural and urban population by upgrading and expanding educational facilities and deployment of more qualified teachers have produced tangible results. However, the performance in national exams with significant variations across states as well as within states suggest that there are still some issues related to equal access to quality education. Other education sector challenges that Malaysia had been facing. First is the difficult task of reaching the remaining few percentage of children who, for different reasons, never enroll or drop out before completing basic education. Further analysis will be needed to identify who these children are, where they are poor, immigrant, or belongings to the indigenous population. Second is the establishment of procedures for early detection of children with special educational needs and the provision of early intervention to ensure that these children will have the same opportunity to succeed as other children. Third, perhaps the most difficult task is to address emerging challenges to improve the quality of education beyond 2015. Although the complexity of the concept of quality education cannot by any means be captured by a single measure, based on the unfavorable outcomes on international achievement tests such as TIMSS and PISA, there is a need for the Malaysian education system to realign its curriculum with its assessment system in order to ensure effective implementation and assessment of higher order thinking skills or HOTS. Fourth, the centralized education system in Malaysia and the high administrative cost takes up a large part of the operational budget. The higher expenditure has expanded across to access education in the country, resulting in a marked increase in student enrollment in primary education. However, the quality of education as reflected in the PISA scores does not compare well with other countries in the Asian region. Since the government of Malaysia's spending on education is already large, with a significant 22% of the total federal budget and 4% of GDP, indicating a strong commitment to education. It does not leave much leeway to further increase in the educational budget. Fifth, the provision of equitable access to quality education is still a concern, since the achievement gaps between rural and urban areas and socio-economic backgrounds have not been eliminated. The same applies to gender, where equity in terms of parity in primary education has been reached, but girls are now performing better than boys when it comes to performance on test scores, and transition to secondary, post-secondary, and tertiary education. In addition, the tendency for boys to drop out is higher than girls. In response to this challenge, the GOM had initiated a number of new and innovative initiatives operational in the 10th and Malaysian Plan and in the Government Transformation Program or GTP and Economic Transformation Program ETP. Quality and outcome-based initiative had become more prominent. In line with the objectives of GTP and NKRA for education, increased importance has been given to investment in preschool, bilingualism, and English literacy screening, along with efforts in making teaching a career of choice. School-based management has been strengthened, including recruitment and training of principals and head teachers. Continuous effort in supporting top-performing schools and assessing underachieving schools to improve has always been part of the quality improvement packaging during the last few years. Focus will be on improving access to education, raising standard with more emphasis on higher order thinking skills, closing achievement gaps, promoting unity among students, and maximizing system efficiency, raising teachers' quality, improved infrastructure for schools in rural areas, and improved access to quality education for children will be further enhanced. To make this problem solved, here is the key recommendation of the MOE in the Malaysian government. First is the continued focus on the marginalized and poor students by offering alternative education programs, while consolidating financial aid to those programs that are more cost-effective and are targeted for those most in need. By the same token, the mechanism for distributing aid can be made more efficient by, for instance, providing block grants directly to schools, and as these will make the implementation of aid more streamlined and manageable. Second, to continue and accelerate it more towards a decentralized system with more local autonomy and flexibility by strengthening school-based management and parental involvement in school activities. However, initiatives to support and encourage parental involvement tend to attract more education and will have to do families in comparison to poor parents who may not have interest or time to be involved in school matters. Hence, measures need to be taken to encourage poor working families to be more involved. Third is to increase coordination among different ministries and government agencies in areas such as ECE, TVET, and adult education would be desirable. Fourth, it will be essential to strengthen the data management and the monitoring and evaluation function further. Cost-benefit analysis could be carried out to ensure that spending on education is cost-effective, and for TVET, tracer studies to evaluate the employability of graduates of TVET programs. While recent initiatives have focused on promoting high-performing teachers, the current tenure and salary system does not address the issue of ineffective teachers. Implementation of the exit policy may pose an issue unless an efficient system of monitoring the teacher's work is put in place. Next, we have Indonesia. For many years of early childhood development programs have been managed and delivered by many sectors in the government that leads into inefficiency and ineffectiveness due to overlap and lack of cross-sectors integration and control. Here are the most pressing problems in Indonesia. First, we have limited coverage of existing ECD services, low participation, and low quality of ECD services. The situation gets worse for the unreachable children, those who are disadvantaged and vulnerable. How to solve this problem? The Indonesian government has started to develop a holistic ECD model that is suitable for the context of rural and poor communities in Indonesia, aiming for preparing children to go primary school with sufficient level of school readiness. The program is also intended to assist government to reduce the repetition rate of early grades of primary school and dropout rate at grade 1 and grade 2 of primary school, especially in rural and remote districts. One of the problems that Indonesia facing right now is countering sexual harassment in Indonesian schools. School students need to better understand the concept of sexual harassment in order to protect themselves. Sexual harassment can have significant negative effect on children on their physical and mental health, safety, school enrollment, educational achievement, dignity, self-esteem, and social relationship. In severe cases of sexual violence, unwanted pregnancies can be another consequences. Child sexual harassment is also associated with psychiatric disorders such as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, substance abuse, and suicide. How to solve this issue? Indonesian courts tend to hand down heavy sentences for severe misconduct on the part of teachers, such as oral sex, sexual intercourse, and anal sex with students. But other forms of sexual harassment by teachers rarely make it to court, such as touching, staring, using inappropriate language, and requesting sexual favors in exchange for students passing exams. The government programs should improve the understanding of sexual harassment by including comprehensive gender-neutral sex and reproductive health education in the curricula from primary school onwards. Parents also are encouraged to need to educate about sexual harassment and gender and reproductive health so that they can talk about these issues with their children. The third problem in Indonesia is the remote learning phase hurdles amid pandemic. Students, teachers in rural areas find it hard to keep up with bad internet connections. The prolonged closure of schools in Indonesia because of coronavirus restrictions has sparked problems for students, teachers, and parents. During the pandemic, education in Indonesia has been transformed through online learning with live courses and digital course materials, and the government had made several attempts to maintain the effectiveness of distance learning. However, the ineffective learning system has also raised several problems, including deficit in learning achievement, students dropping out of school, and child marriage. How they solve this problem? So the Teachers Association urged the government to carry out effective communication at every level, from preschool to university. The government will provide free access of internet in some other remote areas, teaching materials for those areas with bad internet and special trainings for teachers. The fourth problem in Indonesia, students have to make do by either cramming into a small government office in the village or sitting under a tree to study. So the school's more than 90 students have to make do by either cramming into a small government office in the village or sitting under a tree to study. According to Daminus Dabat, school principal said, "If it's rain, we have to quickly pack up everything and run to find shelter." How to solve this problem? So the government will find solution on how to respond to the need of teachers and students to have actual classroom and to make students feel the same, safe and comfortable in their learning areas. The fifth problem of Indonesia, conflict between schools and communities. Example of this conflict over land. Problems of school that lack of proper land documentation are widespread in Indonesia. Problems in land documentation reflects ignorance of the legal status of their land. Also, school officials often do not know how to handle land documentation problems, not to mention lacking of funds to acquired lands. Next problem, conflict between schools and communities, is the free rider problems. Other type of conflict happens when communities use school grounds for non-school activities such as grazing areas for their cattle or goats after school time. This makes the school dirty and creates unsanitary conditions for students. It may cause health problems and prevent students' full participation in the educational system. So communities are also use school grounds for recreational activities. Anybody can enter the school area to play football, in the process destroy plants or breaks classrooms' windows. This issue affirms the fact that schools have been viewed as common good and community members act like the free riders. Anybody in the neighborhood is free to take advantage of the schoolyard. Schools are regularly used by trespassers for individual benefits. The last problem between the school and communities is vandalism and theft. The vandalism and theft of school property is both in rural and urban areas, which it faces right now. In some cases, young delegates Luther get drunk and spray graffiti on school grounds. These activities are often combined with criminals' actions where school assets are stolen. School officials feel it is unsafe to keep various learning resources and materials at schools. How should this be solved? For one thing, the new minister and regional government should be aware of these long-standing problems. The government should provide trainings for school principals to help them learn soft skills to engage with the community and revitalize schools' communities. Schools principals needs to understand the culture of the local community and to be open to working with them. Appointing principals who are part of the community might help ease the problem. So according to the PISA, results show that Indonesian students face serious challenges in their schooling. We should, at the very least, make sure they can study in peace. Even before COVID-19 struck and caused problems for millions of families, the country's financial status is one of the top factors that add to the growing education issues in the Philippines. Furthermore, more children, youth, and adults can't get a leg up and are thus left behind due to unfair access to learning. As a Filipino, one of the problems that we are facing right now is crisis in Philippines. Education. Filipinos from rich households or living in cities and developed towns have more access to private schools. In contrast, less favored groups are more bound to deal with lack of classrooms, teachers, and means to sustain top-notch learning. A 2018 study found that a sample number of 15-year-old Filipino students ranked last in reading comprehension out of 79 countries. They also ranked 78 in science and math. One key insight from this study is it implies those tested mostly came from public schools. Hence, the crisis also lies in the fact that a lot of Filipinos can't read or do simple math. Indeed, it's clear that there is a class divide between rich and poor students in the country. Though this is the case, less developed states that focused on learning if it's covered in their top concern. However, Philippines doesn't invest on top-notch learning as compared to its neighbor countries. In fact, many public schools lack computers and other tools despite the digital age. Further, a shortfall in the number of public school teachers also one of the top issues in the country due to their being among the lowest paid state workers. Aside from that, more than 3 million children, youth, and adults remain unenrolled since the school shut down. Due to COVID-19, education issues in the Philippines have increased and received new challenges that worsened the current state of the country. With the sudden events brought about by the health crisis, distance learning modes via the internet or TV broadcast were ordered. Further, a blended learning program was launched in October 2020, which involves online classes, printouts, or modules, and lesson broadcast on TV and social platforms. Thus, the new learning pathway rely on students and teachers having access to the internet. Yet, this brings another issue in the current system. Millions of Filipinos don't have access to computers and other digital tools at home to make their blended learning worthwhile. Hence, the value of teach in learning affects many students, parents, and guardians. Top concern with these are money for mobile load, lack of gadgets, poor internet connection or signal, students struggle to focus and learn online, and parents' lack of knowledge of their kids' lesson. It's key to note that equipped schools have more changes to use various ways to deal with the new concern for remote learning. These further show the contrast in resources and training for both K-12 and tertiary level, both for private and public schools. One more thing that can happen is that schools may not be able to impart the most basic skills needed. To add, the current status can affect how tertiary education aims to impart the respect for and duty to knowledge and critical outlook. Before, teachers handled 40 to 60 students. With the current online setup, the quality of learning can be compromised if the class reaches 70 to 80 students. The data on students that have missed school due to COVID-19 of the world students' population is 89% or 1.52 billion are the children and youth out of school due to COVID-19 closures. In the Philippines, close to 4 million students were not able to enroll for this school year, as per the DepEd. With this, the number of out-of-school youth or OSY continues to grow, making it a serious issue needing to be checked to avoid worse problems in the long run. Another list of issues when it comes to the Philippines education system: quality, the result of the 2014 National Achievement Test or NAT and the National Career Assessment Examination or NCAE shows that there had been a drop in the status of primary and secondary education. Budget. The country remains to have one of the lowest budget allotment to learning among Asian countries. Cost. There is still a big contrast in learning efforts across various social groups due to the issue of money having as a status symbol. OSY, or the growing rate of OSY, becomes daunting due to the adverse effect of COVID-19. Mismatch. There is a large sum of people who are jobless or underpaid due to a large mismatch between training and actual jobs. Social divide. There is no fair learning access in the country and the lack of resources. Large-scale shortfalls in classrooms, teachers, and other tools to sustain sound learning also make up a big issue. All these add to the big picture of the current system's growing concerns. Being informed with this is a great first step to know where we can come in and help in our own way. Before we talk about how we can take part in various efforts to help address these issues, let's first talk about what quality education is and how we can achieve it. What quality education means. Now, how do we really define this? For VVOB, this is one that provides all learners with what they need to become economically productive, that help lead them to holistic development and sustainable lifestyles. Further, it leads to peaceful and democratic societies and strengthens one's well-being. VVOB also lists its 6 dimensions. First is equity. Second, contextualization and relevance. Third, child-friendly teaching and learning. Fourth is balanced approach. Fifth is the learning outcomes. To shed a light of hope for street children to reach their dreams, building a system that empowers the youth means helping them reach their full potential. During these times, they need aid from those who can help uphold the right for the less privileged. This includes kids in the streets and the right to attain quality education.